Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
Today, Junior! America!
Steak.
For breakfast! So stand by.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Steak for Breakfast podcast. I'm Roan, and I'll continue to be your host for the next couple hours. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the show. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back to America's fastest-growing and quickly becoming favorite political podcast on a not-so-busy News Friday. It's Friday, which means Alan Jacoby's here with me. Alan, what's up?
Hey, everybody. What's up, Ron?
Much getting things done here on the show. Guys, if you're listening today, make sure you head over to your favorite podcasting platform. We prefer Apple or Spotify, but we're on all of them. Subscribe to the show for free, rate it 5 stars, write a review, make sure it's downloaded to your electronic device. Also, find Steak for Breakfast on social medias. We're on all of them as well, but most active on X. If you're hearing this show for the first time, well, don't worry. We'll see you in a bit. Just press pause. Check out our first edition of the podcast today, episode 582. Featured me and Alan. Noah stopped in for the opening segment where we talked about Trump's first 100-day victory rally in Warren, Michigan earlier this week, and the first minor shakeup or game of musical chairs in the Trump administration with former now National Security Advisor Mike Waltz moving over to being nominated for the chief position as UN Ambassador from the United States. We also caught up with one of our great friends, Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany and New York Congressman Nick Langworthy for the first time. We're going to be jumping into this show talking about, well, President Trump assembled the America First Avengers in the West Wing yesterday for a cabinet meeting, 5th or 6th of its kind since he's taken over. We'll end this segment catching up with Texas Congressman Pat Fallon joining us on the show. We'll get you the best of the rest of the headlines in our last news segment today and have Congressman Knott on, who represents North Carolina's 13th Congressional District for the first time. Going to be absolutely fantastic, as it always is here on Steak for Breakfast. So I got a little bit of news from the sports world. Alan, the Knicks closed out their opening round playoff series last night, finally taking care of the Pistons after dropping the ball, figuratively and literally, earlier this week at home, where they could have closed out a playoff series for the first time since 1999. But the city of New York is pretty excited to see the Knicks doing it again. They're about to get absolutely destroyed by the Boston Celtics, who I think are going to repeat as NBA champions, even though I can't fucking stand them, their coaches, or any of their players. But don't you think it's solid, kind of for like the heartbeat of New York when all the sports teams are doing well? I mean, a lot of people consider the New York Football Giants to have just won the draft less than a week ago. You've got the Knicks advancing to the second round of the NBA playoffs for the second year in a row after like a 20-year stint of sucking balls. And then you have the Yankees, who were in the World Series last year, and the Mets, who were 2 games away from making it in the National League, both in first place in their divisions to start the month of May. So I think it always adds to the aspect of, everything that makes New York great, you being a resident there, when the sports teams are kind of dominating, and we're seeing a lot of that again.
Yeah, listen, I'm not a sports fan myself, but as a New Yorker, I do like to see when the New York teams are doing well. It kind of adds to the New York camaraderie, and for everyone to look past the nonsense we have to deal with in this blue bubble that we live.
Sure.
But no, it is great. And I think one of the favorite things for me is when the rival New York teams, not so much the teams, but definitely the fans, go at each other in the most aggressive ways sometimes. I mean, nothing beats a good Islander fan, Ranger fan fight.
I remember growing up and falling in love with hockey and getting into the playoffs when the Rangers made their Stanley Cup run and them chanting, "We want Hextall" at the end of the playoff round because they were going to face former Islanders goalie great Ron Hextall on the Flyers in the second round of the 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs. I completely agree with you. I mean, you've got the Yankees and the Mets both in first place on a collision course in about 2 weeks for a 2-game set, a little Subway Series, and it's coming in the year after Juan Soto jumped ship and went over to the Mets to sign the biggest contract in professional sports history, and now is running into some struggles at the plate after leaving Aaron Judge, who this year is having a year that we've never seen before or haven't seen since like the very beginning stages of baseball, where people like Ruth and Mantle and Garrick would have seasons like this. Aaron Judge is doing it in the modern day and as a power hitter, hitting well over 400 right now. His OPS and all those other stats are absolutely off the chart, and we are going to witness something I think all the fans are going to, well, not only enjoy, but probably fight over a little bit in a couple weeks when it comes to what's going to happen in the Bronx.
I love the fights. And, as far as New York sports go, nothing beats a good Subway Series, and just how the energy is a different level when New York sports teams are at their best. It truly is. I don't think there's another place in the country that really you feel that energy when their sports team, maybe with the exception of Green Bay, they're like fanatics over
Sure.
there. But it literally the New York energy is off the charts when the teams are doing well and rivaling each other.
Even my son noticed it this week. When the Knicks were at home, the Garden was rocking. Anyone is there. Like movie stars, sports figures from all around every other sport. If you're not playing and the Knicks are playing in the playoffs, you're there. And then when we were watching the game yesterday, the one that the Knicks closed out in Detroit, my son looks at me about halfway through the first quarter and he's like, everyone is yelling the same way, like to the same music that they yelled at New York. He's like, Dad, it's like half the volume though. I was like, you just don't understand what it's like when blue-collar, hard-working, union workers pack up a stadium. New York sports is very odd. I think New York and probably Philly are the only two places where you can get this. When your team is great, it's packed and everybody's hyped. When your team sucks, the stadiums are also packed and everybody goes to boo. It's just like a New Yorker's right, part of the ownership that they take in falling in love with these teams and making the whole sports experience a very personal one.
Absolutely. Like for me, the Islanders, I grew up in the same town that the Islanders played in, Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, New York. And I had become a hockey fan, and we would go to every game, and they would blow the roof off the Coliseum, just whether they were winning or losing. And yeah, we can boo them when they're losing and cheer them when they're winning. And there was always, again, this going back and forth with the Ranger fans because, hey, you guys are from the city, you played at the Garden, we're from the island, we play at the Coliseum. And then it all changed when they closed down the Coliseum and everybody moved to the Barclays and all of that. And to me, it did for me and a lot of people that I know that were big Islander fans. The camaraderie just fell off, and they were done with it. It just wasn't the same because it was. I had to drive 3 minutes to go to an Islander game, and it was great.
They've talked about a fifth version of the Garden, and they've pushed for it for a lot of years. I know as long as the Dolans own it, it's never going to happen because. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tell my son, like, he's doing a report on New York and President Trump for his end of the year project in fifth grade this year, and he's looking up all this information about MSG, and he's like, Dad, why does it have like 10 nicknames? I was like, well, it's Madison Square Garden, it's the Garden, it's MSG, it's the world's most famous arena, it's the Mecca when you talk about basketball, and I'm just like, because it's just that. I was like, son, listen, we'll get you there at some point in your life to experience what it's like. You have to understand, you never want them. I don't care how old and decrepit it gets. You never want them to tear that stadium down. There is so much of that city invested in that stadium since they redone it. And I know just last year they were trying to push for like a new one across the street. And I don't ever want to see it happen. I will go there and use the smelly restrooms and know that place is absolutely filthy from top to bottom because of how much just sports lore has been invested into that place. And you can't take that away from it.
It's not even bad and disgusting anymore. The last time I was there for, of course, the iconic Trump rally, which I'll say all of the times I've been at the Garden, I've never seen it as packed as it was for Donald Trump's rally.
That's
there
awesome.
was no sporting event ever that I've seen attending there or a concert that had every single seat filled. I mean, it was wild to see. And they did a lot of upgrades in it. The concessions are clean.
Yep.
Believe it or not, the bathrooms are clean. They've maybe done some updates and kept up with it. That place should be there for the next 100 years. That's it. It's iconic, and they should make no changes other than heavy maintenance and upgrades. That should never be moved.
I got a busy sports weekend coming up on my end as well. Last regular season of the Little League year before we head into the playoffs. Don't want to pat myself in the back, but number one team finished the season like 18-2, unheard of. In Little League, where all you want is parity and participation trophy, we have bullied the entirety of the league. And I tell you what, coaching majors, it's the oldest kids in Little League before seniors, but they're not really involved in like the whole Little League thing. It's 11 and 12-year-olds, so the kids are like 11, 12, and 13 as the season goes on. They're getting ready to like be ready for high school and stuff like that. I could see by watching a lot of the other teams we played, there's parity, but if you kind of pour yourself into the kids and the teams and the dads that you bring on to coach with you and have them buy into the whole family concept, if you start out as a family, you're eventually going to get a team. It seems to work out for us, and the kids are just enjoying. It's been a really enjoyable experience after taking about a decade off to go back to sports, to go out there and coach my son, who asked me to. I never wanted to just kind of insert myself into my kids' sports. I want them to enjoy it for themselves, and I'm completely fine sitting on the other side of the fence and watching both my son and daughter do good. But it's just been a really enjoyable experience, and I'm hoping that we could finish out strong. We haven't lost 2 games in a row the entire season, and that going into the playoffs, you don't expect to lose 2 out of the last 4 or 5 games in the tournament, especially when, as the 1 seed, you're going to be playing like the winners of loser brackets all the way up until the finals, when hopefully you catch the number 2 seed. But yeah, it's been a good experience with me on that end, and but it's just
that's great that your son asked you to do it. That you have that with your son to be able to do that, and he wants you to do it, and it's fun. You know, I've seen people where their sons are on the team that they coach, and it's a miserable experience where the son didn't ask them to coach. You know, the father volunteered or whatever, and there's this contention, and it just doesn't end well at home. You know, as far as just with the fighting over the team. But I know we talk off air a lot about your son and sports and how you coach, and it's great to see that this is one instance that I've witnessed where hey Dad, I want you to coach, and it's great. You got that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because, like I said, having coached for 2 decades before I took some time off, I had seen that in a lot of instances. And usually when dads volunteer to coach and are able to coach in like varsity sports in high school and stuff like that, especially if you have high level teams like ones I had previously been parts of coaching staffs on, the pressure is on, and there's like you just lose that buffer. It's like I make fun of people who work in the same jobs as their wife, because it's like, when do you get your fucking break? Like literally, when do you get your break? You wake up together, you eat together, you ride in the car together, you go and hate your job for 8 hours together, and then you drive home together, and then you have to live together forever until you go to bed and repeat it all the next day for 5 or 6 days a week. Like, you need some time to just be able to be yourself and to think freely and not have to always worry about the pressures of home or family, while at the same time bringing a bread maker or a bacon bringer. And it's the same thing for kids in sports. Like, socially, kids will never act to their fullest potential if they know their parent is looking over their shoulder. And it was just a couple instances of where, believe it or not, players who graduated like 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, who now have kids who are getting to be in the age of Little League, would see me at the park or see me when I'm around my son's football team, because he plays Pop Warner as well, and come and give me a hug and say, wow, I can't believe your son's this old. Look, I have a son. And then I'm like, wow, I feel older than shit because I coached you in high school, and now you have a kid that's like 3 or 4 years younger than my son starting to play sports. And yeah, they'd always be like, oh, did your dad coach you yet? He's like, oh, he was the best coach. And my son would always be like, is that true? Because you're kind of a jerk at home when I have to put my laundry away, or you're telling me to do my chores, take a shower. And I'm like, son, I've always given you your space to grow. I was like, I'll never coach your sister because I don't know how to play and never have coached volleyball or soccer. But baseball, football, hockey, track, I can do all that stuff. So we'll see where you land. And this so happened this year that heading into the season, he's like, Dad, they need managers, just put in. And I didn't think they were going to pick me because, Alan, you know how these like privatized groups are, like Little League and Pop Warner.
Clicks.
Oh man, they have treated me like, and my son has seen it, absolute garbage all year. Like, they don't talk to me, they don't answer questions. Like, they were hoping, and then we wound up being so good. It's like, now they just hope for kids on our team to get hurt. And hopefully it'll end well for us. But the first 100 days have ended pretty well for President Trump. As I mentioned leading in, he had the cabinet assembled in the West Wing yesterday, and President Trump kicked off the meeting talking about some of those accomplishments of the first 100 days. So let's jump right into it.
Just completed what many consider to be the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and we're just getting started. Things are happening that are amazing, and I would not say it if it weren't fact. In a few short weeks, we've achieved the most secure border in American history by far, 99.9%, which is a number that nobody thought was doable. Biden thought you had to go back to the legislature to get legislation passed in order to create a secure border. You didn't. You just had to have the right president and the right people working it. Congratulations, by the way, and to Tom. For 2 months in a row, we have set the all-time records for the lowest number of illegal border crossings ever recorded. The number of illegal border crossers released into the United States is down 99.999%. That is usually 100%. So I think it's an amazing tribute. And Christy, congratulations, and Tom and everybody else. It's an amazing job, actually. And it was done very quickly. We officially designated Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And we're expelling these monsters from our country rapidly and working with the Department of Justice. Pam, you're doing fantastic. Your people are amazing. We're having some judge problems that everybody's reading. We're having some judges that don't like, killers, murderers being thrown out of the country. So I don't know what their problem is, but we have little difficulty. We won on the basis of a great border and of getting criminals out of our country. That was why we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won everything. Every metric we won by a lot. It was a massive victory, and we won, I think, largely because of this issue. I put this issue as number one issue, and they don't want us to do what we're supposed to do, and I don't think.
Alan, what do you think about when President Trump kind of opines in that a little bit? I know there probably has to be some reservations or concerns on how potential votes in the Supreme Court in the favor that's going to go in, as now it appears not only Chief Justice John Roberts, but Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett are now swing votes for Republicans and really have to be whipped on some of these things. God forbid, pun intended, you send anything to SCOTUS right now that has to do with religion. I'm really waiting to see how this whole school choice and religious denomination case that's been being heard up there all week kind of pans out. But with Barrett having to recuse herself from this because apparently, the governing board, which got this Catholic school in question, started off and got their charter going. She was involved in it in some context, maybe referring people to sit on the board. But, when you look at these judges and what they've been able to do, Congress's lack of, enthusiasm to work something through to limit the scope of that, and then unsuredness at the Supreme Court level, I know President Trump has kind of found innovative new ways, they injuncted against DHS, so he literally took the criminal aliens off the plane and put them on a military plane and used the DOD to transport them down to El Salvador and things of that nature. But it's going to be, once the Supreme Court rules on it, if not in favor of the administration, back through the appellate process, or reframing it in a way to where they might constitutionally see an avenue to it, even though for the past 4 years, the Supreme Court didn't weigh in on shit having to do with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and opening up the borders and letting all these people in, violating immigration law and doing whatever the hell they wanted. It's wild.
It is wild, and it just comes down to, again, what they call it the judicial coup or the judicial insurrection, that on the district court level, that we have judges that think that they can rule and tell the commander-in-chief who is invading the country, who is not invading the country, who can be deported, who can't be deported, and all these injunctions, and past presidents doing the same exact thing or something very similarly, and not having any injunctions imposed upon them, because you have these groups out there. It all comes down, for me, these groups out there that are out there shopping for justice and starting these lawsuits and getting these injunctions or rulings. And now this Supreme Court that we have, it's, you don't know how, with the exception of the two that are maybe looking to retire, Alito and Thomas, the other ones, to me, they're pretty much useless in some ways. They've shown time and time again that even at the Supreme Court level, it's like they're not even looking at the Constitution. And as far as the religious stuff, I don't know what's going to happen. I know President Trump just signed an executive order establishing the Religious Liberty Commission. I do like the fact that Donald Trump can duck and weave and change things up, whether you want to call them loopholes or whatever, to continue doing the things that are in the best interest of America and the American people, that the court system is trying to stop. And I think Congress really needs to step up and get their ass in line and do something, because they have the power to do it. We see it there, to rein in these activist judges on the district court level. It needs to happen. It needs to start happening soon, because the Article 3 overstep into Article 2, it's getting really old. It's old already.
Walking and chewing gum is something that a lot of prominent House Republicans say they can do. Then you have to be able to work on reconciliation while codifying executive orders and looking at way to limit the scope of these radical activist judges as well. Listen, the Democrats are on their heels. Every time you do something productive, it's going to put them more so on it. The more you are comfortable with just working on certain things instead of addressing as many things as you can, it's going to allow the Democrats to kind of regroup. And with, like I said, Chief Justice Roberts and Associate Justice Barrett being swing votes now, essentially, for a lot of Donald Trump's policies. It's going to take Congress to come and help them out and set the standards. He'll sign them into law, and then the Supreme Court won't even have to injunct them because they will be the law of the land. So we'll have to see where that goes. It went to Elon Musk next during this cabinet level meeting, as President Trump always kicks it off, kind of giving a little narrative on what they're talking about today, and then kicking it over to the soon-to-be departed head of DOJ. Let's hear him.
The American people voted for secure borders, safe cities, and sensible spending. And that's what they've gotten. A tremendous amount has been accomplished in the first 100 days. As everyone has said, it's more than has been accomplished in any administration before, ever, period. This portends very well for what will happen for the rest of the administration. I think this could be the greatest administration since the founding of the country.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help. You really have sacrificed a lot. Been treated very unfairly.
Well, they did like to burn my cars, which is not great. Could be better.
But you have been treated unfairly. But the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done. And we just want to thank you very much. And, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his...
I ran into a never-Trumper conservative at work last night, Alan. This is someone who, for the past 4 years leading up to this election, after they bought into Trump originally and then felt like coming out of the pandemic in his first term in office that he had run the political mile and essentially was going to be done, a gag gift moving forward, never saw the rise of Trump coming, especially after the Butler assassination attempt. And now that President Trump is back in office, came up to me and wanted to, first he's always like, so what's up with your boy? He's not getting as much stuff done at the end of 100 days as he's saying. And then, I kind of just tread lightly because I don't want to get into workplace arguments. But then he got into the Elon Musk and DOJ thing. And when you just see how the Trump derangement syndrome works on some people, talking about how he's identifying all this stuff, but you can't cut it without Congress. And then he's emailing all these federal workers to come back to work. And then when the people come back to work, their fucking buildings are getting sold off. What the hell is he doing here? So then I'm like, yeah, but you don't think the things like USAID and all these bad government contracts and the United States Institute for Peace, which had an armed division, even though they weren't approved to have an armed division, and all of these bad checks getting, you don't think that he's yeah, but at the same time, he's is it really going to get cut forever? And I'm like, well, that's kind of the hope, bud. And he but it was just to see on full display what Trump derangement syndrome, nothing Donald Trump or anybody that helped him get back into office and is working for the American people now is satisfactory for these people. He would completely feel more comfortable and sleep better at night. And I'm not even joking. If somebody like Mitt Romney had won the presidency this year and was currently sitting in the Oval Office doing nothing except managing, much in the same way Republicans had done, in addition to starting a few new wars every time they get back to office.
Everybody that says, well, Donald Trump didn't get as much done as he said he was going to get done from day one to day 100. I turn around and say, well, whose fault is that? Because Donald Trump has implemented pretty much everything he's wanted to that he ran on, and he took all of those big, beautiful executive orders and and all of the demands of Congress, passed it along to them, who we now hold the majority. Whose job is it now to make sure the agenda gets pushed forward? Well, that's the Republican House majority and the Republican Senate majority. So it gets back over to him to sign into law and becomes the law of the land. So you know what? You know where the speed bumps are? It's the people on our team that seem to be a little slow moving and lazy to get all of that done. What I'm disappointed is, and what would have been a really great thing, is if the House and the Senate worked their asses off to make sure on Donald Trump's 100th day in office, he had at least a half a dozen important bills to sign into law. And I think they could have done that. And there's a reason that didn't happen. He's done everything we voted for.
Yep.
I voted for government disruption. I voted for a secure border. I voted and being that I think in reality to put America back on track to have a great economy and an American prosperity. And that's not going to happen, in my opinion, in 4 years. There was so much damage done. It's happening. And now Congress and the Senate need to pick it up and get it back to him so that it stays that way and it can't be reversed.
No, it's the truth. I mean, I just saw that the full federal funding of NPR and things like that are getting completely defunded by this administration. As he's moving to do stuff like that, kind of working around the big stuff, legislatively, Congress has to act. You talked about in our first show, Alan, about the Democrats having no messaging, and it's because, the donors and the people that influence them are essentially forcing them to stay on things that they've spent hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars on over multiple decades to move to the forefront. I'm talking about like DEI, like 1619, like trans agenda, etc. That's where the big gap and divide in the Democratic leadership is right now. Like, everyone who has money is telling them, like, you have to stick in this thread and hold the line. Where, like, some of the people who are like, dude, we just got our asses kicked last election in every way, shape, or form over. We have to move on. It's given Republicans time to capitalize, but they know, like, hey, if we pass reconciliation, we get that no tax on tips, Social Security, and things like that in there. Oh, America's going to eat that up. We're going to pass we're going to kick the debt ceiling down the road. We're going to get the border funded, and then we can just coast into the midterm election cycle. I don't think many Americans really do see it as that. I think they see the reconciliation package now, after all the news and publicity it's gotten, as something like Congress should be doing. And if they do anything outside of that, that's where they actually start notching off wins.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Americans want to see more action.
No complacency.
Yeah. And as far as Democrats go with their messaging and their donors, they've lost a lot of their donors. We've seen that they lost took a hit to some of their fundraising infrastructure by a lot of their mega donors. And whatever donors they have, and they have their donors are left, I don't understand how they're not sitting there wanting a change and tired of seeing their millions and millions and millions of dollars just burning in front of them.
Yeah.
Wasting their money on this ridiculous messaging that they have. But hey, listen, keep doing it. Keep doing that.
There's a lot of these people who spend the big bucks on the Democrat side who think when Donald Trump's current term in office is over, so is the America First movement. But you really have to look how much of an investment is being made in people like J.D. Vance, like Marco Rubio, and how many of those big-time oligarchs, and I'll call them that because that's what they are, on the Republican side now, the Cooks, the Thiels, the Musks, etc., even the Bezoses, are coming around to ensure, like I said, it was going to be a treat and a gift by the people who govern the world financially to get Donald Trump back in office for his second term. It will be the start of what will be an empire that's influenced by people like Thiel and Bezos and Musk moving forwards with a J.D. Vance as president. And that's just the way it's going to be. Like, we might not love everything. It's not going to be true conservatism as of, a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump has governed as isn't true conservatism as well. It's more towards the middle, but with an America First spin on it, which I think makes it really appealing to more people outside of just the conservative tent and how we've been able to widen it so much over the course of the nearly last 10 years now. But the fact of the matter is that, it's going to be a battle of the big donor bucks in the next election cycle, even more so because they didn't really think that these people were going to come in between July and November and pour 300 some odd $1 million into the end of an election cycle and wash Donald Trump and Republicans, convincingly over the finish line. So that's part of the reality.
Absolutely. And I think all of these people that are going to be running, from candidates to re-election in Congress to the people that are running these campaigns, really have to sit down and look at the big picture. They don't have a ballot with Donald Trump on it.
Yep.
They actually have to run a race and win on their own. Yeah, those out there, they'll get a Trump endorsement, but and I'll say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it, and people are going to hate me for keep saying it, is I feel like we are behind this 8-ball in the midterms because Republicans get lazy.
Sure.
And I think people that are, and Congress is not helping themselves. It comes back to the inactivity of Congress and what people who are hardcore MAGA Trump supporters are seeing, and they're like, listen, don't make us not come out and vote for you, and be, which is a stupid way to think. But unfortunately, there are stupid people out there, even in MAGA. I'd hate to say it. On every side, we have to get out and make sure that we have the numbers so that President Trump can keep being successful in the second half of his presidency. He's not on the ballot. You guys are on your own. So don't make it hard for yourselves. To me, it could be so easy, and it's just that they're not. To me, right now, they're not making it easy for a MAGA to want to be that aggressive and coming out and voting for them as they were for Donald Trump when he was on the ballot.
No, that's it. I mean, the pleas that President Trump are going to have to make before the midterm elections, not only supporting candidates, especially in those battleground and purple areas when it comes to the Republican House, but how this all ends, figuratively and literally, because of the impeachments that will be rolled out on day one. It's going to be pretty epic to see, and I'm sure, like we talked about rallies in our first episode of the podcast, we'll see some rallies that highlight President Trump hopefully retaining power in the House for Republicans in 2026 as well. After Elon Musk, he turned it over to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's now wearing another hat. I mean, it's funny that Elon Musk showed up in 2, but now Marco Rubio is wearing 4 or 5. And believe it or not, I'm pretty sure we all believe it. He talked about, dossiers Joe Biden's State Department had on a lot of conservative people in the United States during his administration, what they're doing to work on eliminating those. Let's hear it.
Something else we got out of the business of, wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building.
Tulsi.
Of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Me or Elon? We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about it. The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation. When we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that.
Pretty crazy.
It is. It is pretty crazy. And it's expected. Listen, Democrats hate everything that has to do with anyone wanting to stop their path to ultimate power.
Yeah.
And if destroying lives, destroying families, disappearing people, attempting to kill people, it's wild how far they are willing to go just so they can have their slush funds and ultimate one state rule, one party rule.
We dodged a bullet much in the same way President Trump did in Butler, Pennsylvania last year. I tell you that, and I'll tell you that every single day moving forward as well. Guys, wherever you're listening to the show today, hope you're enjoying now the second of 2 big Friday editions of the Steak for Breakfast podcast. Do us a favor. Share the show with your friends, family, coworkers, and loved ones. Head over to your favorite podcasting platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Samsung, Amazon Podcast, or wherever you're hearing the show. Subscribe for free. Make sure it's downloaded to your electronic device. Rate the show 5 stars, and please leave a review. And then check us out on social media, Twitter, Getter, True Social, Instagram, and TikTok is where we have accounts. Find them, follow them, hit the notification bell. You'll never miss out on all the great stuff we've got going on down here at Steak for Breakfast. So it circled back to the nationwide injunctions and how that's President Trump put it himself in a Truth Social post about a week ago, stymied the America First agenda and the mandate that the people have given him when they elected him back to the White House in November of last year. There are some things at the executive level that President Trump might be able to do. It's been used by a few presidents before, and he kind of opened up the door to it during this meeting. Let's listen.
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, but we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people on that aspect?
There are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected. and hopefully we don't have to go that way. But there are ways of mitigating that. I want to thank you all very much.
Alan, what do you think about a suspension of the writ of habeas corpus to be able to deport these people from our countries if, let's just say, judges keep injuncting and the Supreme Court maybe doesn't rule in favor of President Trump? Again, completely asinine to even think about how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did what they did for 4 years, and presidents before them did what they did. There's over 30 million illegal aliens in this country that are dragging down every system set up for Americans with their illegal alienness in this country right now, and the Supreme Court may rule not in favor of this administration to remove those people over procedural methods. Do you know how many millions of hours it would take to try 30 million illegal immigrants and their families through courts? It's just completely crazy, but President Trump has opened up the door to something that's, I would say it's a little bit more than spicy.
Listen, he said it himself. 3 of the highly respected presidents did what they had to do it, and I think and then he says he doesn't want to have to do it. I want President Trump to want to do it and to just do it. Do whatever is needed, however it works to get it done. I'm over there are ways that we can do it. We don't really want to go that route. I want that route taken and just completely. I know. It's aggravating. It's so aggravating.
Instead of calling him Lincoln or Truman or one of the other Wilson, they would be calling him Hitler, and this is exactly what these are like figurative train rides to the gas chambers, and in reality, when it would just be people who don't belong here going to the only country that they actually belong in. It's
They're
wild.
Gonna call him Hitler anyway.
I know.
They're gonna call him that anyway, no matter what he does. He could be giving them first class tickets back to their country, and it'll still be, oh look, he's Hitler, and these people are sipping on champagne. I would purposely do it just for them to go and call him Hitler, but something has to be done. Suspend whatever he has to suspend, and get the backing of whoever he's got to get the backing of. And enough of this. The judicial system in our country right now, I look at it, the federal, definitely the federal judiciary.
Sure,
it's completely it's screwed.
We got to eliminate a couple benches. Listen, at some point, Congress has to adjust dissolving D.C. and New York for starters. And then we have to confirm more moderate and conservative judges that are going to sit in some. I mean, we've done a good job of turning ish around the Ninth Circuit, but now some of the other ones are starting to get out of control. And it's like, instead of just trying to clog leaks in the dam, we have to be able to. I mean, we still have ambassadors and agency heads who aren't confirmed for President Trump's administration. Today is day 103.
Right.
You think we're going to get into confirming judges? That right now, to me, looks like something we're not going to be addressing until the last 2 years. And depending what we do in the midterms on whether or not are we going to be confirming conservative judges for someone who everyone outside of the conservative press is going to call a lame duck if we lose the balance of power in the House of Representatives. So, again, I don't want to give everybody anxiety here on a Friday, but these are real things we need to address, while at the same time, and in our last audio clip before we jump in with Texas Congressman Pat Fallon, President Trump was talking about the reality of this, how I guess some things can be turned on and off, like border security and with a new president, but it's not getting us back in the right direction until you get the big ship, figuratively speaking, as the United States turned around. Let's hear it.
We're turning it around. It's a big ship to turn around, and we're going to have the greatest country financially in the history of the world, I believe. I think we're going to do things and we had to do it. We reset the table. Every single country, with just about without exception. I'd have to really think hard for who hasn't taken advantage. And I don't even blame those countries. I blame the person that was sitting right here where I am for allowing it to happen, where our country was ripped off on trade, hundreds of billions of dollars. And now we're doing better than we've done in a long time. We were losing $4 to $5 to even $6 billion a day on trade with Biden, and now we have it down to a very manageable number, and the tariffs for the most part haven't even kicked in yet. So that's the way. Stock markets to me are an indication, but the big indication is what's happening, and the people around the table know what's happening.
And again, talking about trade and tariffs and how that's getting turned around, but figuratively speaking, as a country itself, there is so much stuff we have not gotten to the bottom. You're seeing people still get walked out of agencies who are resist Trump or never Trump or against the America First movement. Still to this day, day 103, you can't start to do anything until these people are gone. Now, are we going to have to continue to figure out more innovative ways? Listen, Doge has done it in being able to figure out through algorithms, through, even like email or administrative paperwork behavior, how some of these bad actors in our governments act. But what I've come to learn over the years is if you want to stay working for the federal government, you have to walk a pretty broad line of just not doing anything absolutely horrific, and it's almost impossible to get fired. So as this administration comes in and deals with a lot of these problems, pushback from the media, pushback from the Democrats, including the enemy within, it's going to be a little bit of a process, but you can't argue that it hasn't been a first successful 100 days to President Trump's second term in office. What do you think, Alan?
Absolutely, and I think more great things are to come. And I want to see some real aggressive action against, especially the judiciary and these. I want to see more agencies fall,
Sure,
more slush funds gone and done away with, and we just it is a big ship to turn around. I think last month it was like 15 billion we took in tariffs. They said, and of course, there's always the people attacking that. We're on the right track. I want to see. I just want to see a little more. Not playing nice with these morons anymore. This is how we're doing things, and real ways to do it.
I think we'll leave it at that as we're getting ready to jump in with Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. But before we do, here's another check-in with one of our partners. Friends, I want to take a minute and talk to you about cigars. Whether you're on the golf course, fishing on the lake, or doing some yard work around the house, our friend Alan has got you covered. He's launched the Patriot Cigar Company. The tobacco is hand-picked in the fields in Nicaragua, right next to where Mike Lindell picks his coffee beans. The cigars are hand-rolled, aged 3 years. If you enter promo code STEAK here, you're going to get 15% off your total order. Every order over $100, free shipping, and a $10 e-gift card is included with every purchase. MyPatriotCigars.com, that's MyPatriotCigars.com, a premium smoke for freedom-loving patriots. All right, joining us first on the show today, this Big Friday edition of the Steak for Breakfast podcast, he's the congressman who represents Texas's 4th congressional district, which means we're welcoming back Representative Pat Fallon. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been an interesting week.
Busy times, happy to host. Listen, I think we should start off with what we've been talking about for an overwhelming majority of this week, and that's the successes of President Trump's first 100 days. There are administrations that get things done when a new president takes the Oval Office, but President Trump being back kind of has reset that standard as he's done for many things in rewriting political playbooks. This was a very successful first 100 days. I mean, you can't start the conversation without talking about border security, but when you're looking at trade deals, when you're looking about making our streets safe again, when you're looking about a lot of the things that President Trump campaigned on, House Republicans campaigned on and promised the American people, everyone's sure delivering, and it's helped for a pretty memorable first 100 days.
No, there's no doubt about it. And that's one of the reasons why you'll see that the left will not talk and refuses to talk about border security at all. All they do is promote a wife-beating, gang-banging human trafficker and try to call him a Maryland man. And boy, they got caught there, and they're just kind of stuck in it now. And they can't they can't extract themselves. They usually just triple down, which they've done there. But President Trump ran on and said, we don't need any new laws. We simply need to enforce the laws that are already on the books and let the Border Patrol do their jobs. And we can have a secure border. And you see it with the numbers. In February and March, there were 137. This is in 2024. So the last February, March, Biden was president. We had 140,000 illegal border crossings and then 137,000. And with President Trump at the helm, it was 8,000 in February of 2025, and it was 7,000 in March. And we'll soon get the numbers sometime today for April. And it's going to be, I would imagine, about the same. And then you have to compare that and contrast it with the worst month we'd ever have in our history, which is, of course, under the Biden administration. There were 304,000 illegal border encounters. President Trump has secured the border. The numbers are down 97%. Wild success beyond what anyone really thought was possible. And you got to tip your cap because he said he was going to make Americans safer, and he has.
No, he certainly has. Does it surprise you, though, to see the Democrats? You already mentioned the Maryland man. We all roll our eyes every time we say that one, as more and more stuff continues to come out to unveil just how horrible of a person this illegal alien was. But to kind of hitch their wagons to this narrative that, illegal aliens aren't getting their due processes, they're ripping families apart. Obviously, they've got all these radical activist judges trying to step in the way. There are some methods congressionally that you guys are working on to limit the scope of these judges who think with the stroke of a pen they have more power than 77 million plus votes and the mandate given by the American people to the president and to Congress. Moving forward, do you see you guys kind of working? I know it's going to be busy with reconciliation and things of that nature, but getting something done to maybe limit the scope of these judges?
I really would love to. I have to be honest with you, because as you just said, why can one judge thwart our republic? Why can one judge say, "Oh, I don't"? My interpretation is this is unconstitutional. It always, by the way, happens to be a Democratic appointed judge when the president of the United States has clear powers defined within the Constitution. It's difficult in so much as this. Yes, we have the House. Yes, we have the Senate and the White House, but we don't have 60 votes in the Senate. So with reconciliation, which makes that so unique, is we can bypass that rule when it comes to fiscal matters.
Right.
And it's already the one big beautiful bill, as the president calls it, is already chock full of stuff. And so here's the good news. As far as the one big beautiful bill, all the pieces of the puzzle are moving together. Of course, they're not clicked in together yet because that takes some time, but they're moving toward one another. If you had asked me 6 weeks ago, they weren't moving toward each other. In fact, they were moving away from one another. So if we can stay on this glide path, we can get that passed. And we have to, by the way, because if we don't, we're going to have that's horrible policy and a result for the American people in 2025. But come November, a year and a half from now, the Democrats will get the House back.
No, they most certainly will. Did it surprise you this week to see maybe the first rendition of musical chairs going on in the administration? Former Congressman and now NSA Director Waltz moving into a nomination for the United Nations ambassador from the United States. Do you think it's more of a reshuffling of the deck or maximizing talent, now bringing in someone else in addition to Waltz going to the UN that we're going to be able to have as NSA Director? What's your take on it?
I think this is weird. I've never answered a question like this before. I'm going to say yes, no, and yes, no. So let me explain. Let me explain.
I like it.
Am I surprised that Mike Waltz is no longer National Security Advisor? No. Is he highly talented and an asset to the Trump administration? Yes. So am I surprised that he is still working for the Trump administration? No. Am I surprised that we're talking about right now that Mike Waltz is going to be the ambassador to the United Nations for the United States? Yes. So allow me to go on a little further. I served with Mike Waltz on the Armed Services Committee for 4 years. He also sat on the Intelligence Committee as well. And what I was struck by was he was very bright. He was very put together. He was very disciplined. He was very helpful. He was a good mentor. He'd gotten into Congress a couple years before I had. And just a solid member of Congress, exceptional member of Congress. So I thought he would excel with his new job as National Security Advisor. I do think the Signal chat thing certainly was a mistake.
Sure.
I said it back then. Was it as egregious as the Democrats tried to make it out to be? Of course not. They're always going to go hyperbolic. But when you had that, my thought was if the president is truly and really annoyed with that situation, he's probably going to act in a few months, which he did. So that didn't surprise me when he did that. But he was very clever because the president is very smart. He wants to retain that talent, as you just said. And so moving Mike over to an open spot, which he will be exceptional at, and so would at least Stefanik would be very good at it as well.
Agreed.
Because they understand the complexities of today's world, but also the histories that so many of the key nation states have. Because if, nation states have a memory, and you have to know that backstory in order to understand their motivations today. And Mike does that. And we had a lot of intellectual discussions about that. I'm such a nerd about geopolitics. I've been reading almanacs, the CIA fact book, and New York Times. The only New York Times I really read was when I was a kid, the New York Times Almanac. We're talking in the early 80s. So I have this long memory, and I'm just very nerdy about it. And Mike could hold his own with me by, easily, walking away. So I think he's going to do a great job, and I'm happy to see him there.
I see what you're doing, trying to set up that congressional Jeopardy team moving forward. I like it. No, but I think it does make a lot of sense. You know, you talk about the fallout from Singlegate. Democrats definitely want to scalp. Donald Trump gave him about an hour to make up every fake news narrative. Oh, the administration's falling apart. The dominoes are falling. Who's the next cabinet position level to get kicked out of the administration? And then Donald Trump puts out the Truth Social post yesterday that he's nominating him to be the UN ambassador. And it's just like everybody had to kind of rewind. Well, the Democrats just continue to run with it. But I mean, everybody that thought maybe there was something there kind of sees it is just a reshuffling in the deck and maybe maximizing talent depending on who we're bringing in to be NSA director moving forward. How about the Ukraine deal? I mean, I know this is something that congressionally you guys were kind of held to a standard last year where it was almost like forced to get anything done. There had to be continued funding for Ukraine. You guys did take a really hard line on that heading into the 2024 presidential election cycle. But the fact of the matter is the rare earth mineral deal, in addition to a lot of the reconstruction contracts, it's kind of a two-way street for me when I look at it. Yes, we're going to be recouping so much of the money that we poured into the conflict in Ukraine, but at the same time, without even brokering a peace deal, it's kind of hard to attack Ukraine when U.S. people and contractors are working on the reconstruction contracts there and working in the rare earth mineral field as well. So Donald Trump has kind of set up a safeguard to not make sure that only this deal will be successful, but at the same time provide a little bit more security without having to sign any kind of a peace pact right now in the still early stages of this hopefully end of conflict.
Ron, you asked such a great question, and in your question, you had the answer. It was wonderful. It was excellent because you're spot on here. One of the things that got me about first of all, there will be college courses taught about the Ukraine conflict. 3 credit college courses that last for 4+ months, because there's so much to it. There's so many layers to it. One of the layers that I didn't realize until February of 2022, when Ukraine was invaded, was they have the 4th most natural resources of any nation state in the world,
Yep.
which is remarkable considering there's 200+ countries. And so they have this boundless potential for wealth. Now, what's held them back? Corruption. What holds most countries back? Corruption. Every country has it, just to varying degrees. In the West, we're not defined as corrupt because we don't have it as bad as them, and we can function in Western Europe, Japan, Australia, United States, but we still have some. And Ukraine's 30 years along a democratic journey. Let me tell you, think about this. South Korea is a functioning democracy today, but it took them 50 years to get it right.
Correct.
Taiwan is a functioning democracy today, but it took them also about the same time, about a half a century. In Japan and Germany are a little bit different because they had an occupying force there to make sure to guide their hand. And Ukraine wasn't there yet. They had another 20 years to go. They were getting there. So it certainly was better than what Russia has turned out to be. They didn't deserve to be invaded, and I'm rooting for them to win. And I think it would be incredible for not only the ethereal concept of democracy, but for the Western interests to see them prevail or at least survive. Because at this point, what is victory, right? So I have asked, and I think you'll find this interesting, being on the Intel committee now, when we have a Ukrainian delegation come in, a lot of the time when we have foreign delegations come in, we meet in a skiff, which is a classified area, and we can't walk out of that door and talk about it at all. But we've had 2 delegations of Ukrainians that have come in, and we've met with them outside the skiff. So not classified, confidential, if you will, but not classified. So I can talk about some of the broad strokes. And one of the questions I ask them, and these are high-ranking generals and administration officials, what does peace look like for you? What's victory look like? And they each separate delegation said almost the exact same thing, which is they understand they're 83% roughly intact. They're not getting that land back.
Right.
They know that. So if they're acknowledging it, I think Zelensky start acknowledging it. Can they get slight pieces of it back? Maybe. Crimea is definitely gone. You're not getting that back. Obama let that happen in 2014.
Yeah.
So what they think is, and they're right, and I get it. They want security guarantees in the future. And if you or I were negotiating for them, that's exactly what we would want. So I don't begrudge them that at all. But Zelensky made this massive mistake of coming into the White House and acting as if he was some equal to the president of the United States, which he's not. And you've got to be a little bit, or quite frankly, a lot more diplomatic than that. Understand your position and get the best deal you can moving forward. So as you just said, an economic deal that worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars between the United States and Ukrainians, gives the United States an incentive to ensure that they are as intact as possible, to ensure that they are secure as possible moving forward. It was an art of the deal, brilliant maneuver by the president, and I tip my cap to him again.
No, certainly you have to agree with your comments there. And then in closing today, Congressman, you got to talk about the big next issue for House Republicans moving forward. Listen, you guys passed that budget resolution right before Easter. You're rolling into markups now. I know there's some dates on the calendar, Memorial Day weekend being one of them, and then before or on 4th of July of this year as well. Listen, America's clamoring for that big, beautiful bill. There's a lot of people nervous about the possible tax increases, which you talked about as well at the top of this interview. Tell us about the next steps for the House Republicans and how important it is to kind of stick in that thread that showed so much success at the last end of the election cycle and to get this session of Congress kicked off. And that's for the overwhelming majority of the conference and the body to stick together.
No, we have to. With 220 Republicans, we need 218 in a full House to pass something. I think currently right now you can pass it with 216 or 217 because we rarely have all 435 seats and members filled. So what we're doing is we passed instructions in the House. They passed them in the Senate. The intent in the House is to save $1.5 trillion. The intent in the Senate is to save a paltry and laughable $4 billion. Clearly, that's not going to happen. I wouldn't vote for that. It's got to be something much closer to the 1.5 trillion. What's the lowest number that we could stomach and pass? That's a great question because I don't know what that number is. I really don't know what that number is for me personally. Anything that starts with a T, a trillion, I'm a yes on. Absolutely. Yes, well, I wished it was 1.5, but if it ends up being a clean trillion, I'm a yes. Something close to that, 900 billion, I'm a yes. Because it's a step forward. Are we all the way down the path? Did we get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Of course not, but it's one step closer to it amongst many more steps that we need to take in the future. So right now, like I'm on the House Armed Services Committee and the Oversight Committee. We have passed our parts of reconciliation out of committee, and all of the other successive committees, if they have anything related to reconciliation, they're doing that as well. The Ways and Means Committee just announced the delay, which is unfortunate. But what the intent is to pass all that, get that done and out of the House prior to May 31st, so the president can put his signature on it, prior, I say May 31st, at the end of the month, Memorial Day, that kind of thing. And then so it can be enacted and be law by the 4th of July.
Yep. Big moves moving forward. We expect the Democrats to throw every roadblock in the way, but listen, the equation is there. As long as House Republicans stick together and they don't break it from the pack, it looks like the vote is going to be there and delivery is going to be ensured for the American people. Listen, Congressman, as always, a pleasure to catch up with you on a busy News Friday here on Steak for Breakfast. We've got everything live linked in the show description today, including a link to your congressional website. They can sign up for your newsletter, see all the great work you're doing in committee and up on Capitol Hill and beyond. Where can we find you on social media? We'll live link that as well.
Rep Pat Fallon. And we'd love to on X and on Facebook. We'd love to, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from folks. You know what? We even love dissent too. Unlike the Democrats, we ain't scared of it, brother. And you are a great American. Have a great weekend, and thanks for having me on.
Is the Congressman representing Texas's 4th Congressional District, Rep Fallon. Thanks for joining us on the show today, sir. Have a great weekend. We hope to see you again soon.
You too, brother. God bless. Take care.
We're right on schedule and right on target. We're moving this very aggressively because we have to. We've got to deliver for the American people. And the one big, beautiful bill has so many components. All of it is necessary. All of it's important, and all of it is timely. So Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, said yesterday that July 4th was it'd be great to celebrate all the tax cuts and all the other achievements by then. I'd like to do it sooner, Sean. So the update is, I'm sure the leader told you, we've got 7 committees doing markups of their various pieces of legislation this week. We'll have 4 other committees in the House doing that same work next week. The third week, we'll have the Budget Committee merge all that together into one big, beautiful bill, and we'll send that over to the Senate. We want to move this aggressively because it will stabilize the markets. It will be a turbo boost to the economy. It will restore, again, helping us restore the peace through strength principle. And it will show the country that Republicans are serious, that they made the right choice. We had a demographic shift in the 2024 election, as you know. New voters, new categories of folks who joined the party. We're going to demonstrate for them they made the right choice.
All right, jump back into the news portion of the program. Last news segment on the back end of 2 big Friday editions of the Steak for Breakfast podcast. I'm still Roan. Alan's with me.
Hey.
And that was Speaker Johnson last night talking on Boomer Sweat, Sean Hannity's show, about the big, beautiful reconciliation package, the bill that's coming down the pike, and some of the dates set up. We were able to confirm in our interview just now with Representative Pat Fallon that 2 of the 7 committees have already worked out and completed their markups. So we're looking at 5 more heading into the weekend now, with 5 more committees getting ready to start their markups next week. But that's not without a lot of grandstanding going on. Listen, when you're talking about using the entirety of your time during committee, when you're talking about putting in as many amendments as you can to try and be added to these bills, in addition to what Rep. Fallon said about the distance that are still being had between the House and Senate on savings, he said the Republicans want the $1.5 trillion over 10 years, which could lead up to $3 trillion overall with appropriated budgets and the recommendations made by DOJ, plus scaling back to pre-COVID spending. But, you know, the Senate wants it in less than $10 billion over 10 years. And as a lot of people are on board to get this through the House now, there is no way it's coming back down after getting finalized by the Senate, and is not going to have those cuts, like he said, that doesn't start with at least a T, as in trillions, in government saving over 10 years, because that's what they were elected to the House to do. They have a lot shorter term and have to run for re-election during President Trump's second term in office, and kind of just, you know, paints the narratives that Republicans are do-nothings, that don't want to save anything, and don't really believe in the America First agenda. If they don't deliver on this, Alan, what do you think?
I think you're right. If they don't deliver on it and we're not saving the money and seeing the cuts, Americans are not going to come out for these people and give them their jobs back. The members of Congress they're running for their jobs. They have jobs to keep. They have jobs to lose. And most of the Senate's like, you know, it's, again, to me, there's too many rules. There's too many moving parts. We want the money saved. We want the government shrunk, and Congress is they have a lot of work to do, bro. They got a lot of work. There's nothing else to say about it.
And with all the grandstanding and prolonging we're going to see in the House of Representatives, a lot of the people in the House are completely aware that Chuck Schumer plans on doing exactly the same up in the upper chamber. And when the markups are completed and it's handed over to the Senate, I mean, I think Leader Thune has done the best to his ability to move on a lot of Trump's agenda and get his confirmations done. You know, the numbers are still a lot higher for President Trump than it has been for the past 3 or 4 presidents before him. But at the same time, you look, you know, when you have a vote on the floor that's going to win by a majority, no matter how much, and Democrats are using like all 24 hours for every single thing, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. It should show Americans that they don't care about them, much of the same context that, you know, President Trump got everybody to buy into, and Republicans got their constituents believing in heading into this election. It's just that I almost wish that voting came, like, we should be able to vote for people in Congress maybe like once a month, Senate like once a year, and make sure when they go up there, they are held to account, because this is definitely not the way the founders and the framers intended it to be. You know, having to invoke some of their legislation like the Alien Enemies Act and the suspension of writ of habeas corpus in regards to deportations as well is wild, but it seemed like things worked a lot better than when our country was going through the actual growing pains of becoming one, instead of now when we're getting ready to celebrate our 250th birthday. Absolutely.
I agree. Things don't seem to be getting easier when you think they should be, but hey, this is we're all here for it, and we want what we want. We want a great country to live in, and for young people to be able to afford to raise families and get great jobs and not be out-jobbed by people that don't belong here, and the people that are getting government handouts that don't deserve government handouts, whether they were born here or not. We need things moving.
And I mean, we could always check in on the Democrats and see what they're doing. I just mentioned Senator Schumer. Let's see what he had going on this week.
Americans are noticing. The polls this week show Trump has the lowest 100-day approval rating since they started polling 80 years ago, the lowest. Even worse, 72% of Americans think it's likely that Trump's handling of the economy will walk us directly into a recession. People who hate what Trump is proposing. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval rating lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united. We're on our front foot. We're stepping forward and going after Trump and having real success. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Donald Trump having the lowest poll numbers in the history of the galaxy for any president at the end of his first 100 days is the worst thing in the history of things ever created in the universe. But when Chuck Schumer's poll comes out that shows his party favorability is at 17% for him personally, oh, polls come and go. We don't worry about it. We're united.
And we're going to go after Trump. Instead of working for the American people, they have just entrenched themselves in going after Trump and anyone who supports Donald Trump and his agenda, including Republican voters. That's all. And that has to really hit home with voters.
Yep.
The Democrats aren't talking about what they're going to do for you to make your life better. They're going to talk about extreme MAGA Republicans and tell a lie about getting rid of Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and going after Trump and polls come and go. It is such smoke and mirror bullshit. It's beyond the pale.
It certainly is. I mean, we could always check in on the House of Representatives and see how they're doing down there. Here's Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
It's not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated, because they really want our local law enforcement to go out and round up people when they could be looking out for the murderers and the sexual abusers as well as the robbers. They want them to go and round people up on civil accusations.
So it is not illegal for people to enter the country illegally. That's literally what she said.
Congress's favorite ghetto rat.
Oh my gosh. I got a poll that came out today. This is from RNG. This was President Trump's approval rating for this week and out of his first 100 days. 49% approved, 48% disapprove. That's stark comparison to the 44, 43, 42, 41% heading into his first 100 days, which is, a direct contrast to what we had seen leading up into that, where some polls had him over 50 and everyone had him, close to 48, 49%. So the media tanks for the celebratory date, figuratively, and then the poll numbers start to level out, getting close to 50% again as we come out of the first 100 days and everybody kind of gets back to business, scheming up their fake news narratives. Yeah. We did see good jobs numbers. We also see a good economy. I'm watching the S&P, the NASDAQ, all those today. They're all up 1.5%. So crashing the stock market and Wall Street with the implementation of Liberation Day and the Trump tariffs lasted about 3 days. And ever since then, we've seen steady growth back close to what the numbers were when Joe Biden left office, which they propitiate as the greatest economy in the history of the galaxy, even though the stock market and the economy are two totally different things. Here's one related to the economy where President Trump draws that comparison and talks about the successes coming out of his first 100-day mark as well. Gasoline just broke $1.98 a gallon, lowest in years. Groceries and eggs down, energy down, mortgage rates down, employment strong. And much more good news as billions of dollars pour in from tariffs. Just like I said, and we're only getting into a transition stage, just getting started. Consumers have been waiting for years to see prices coming down. No inflation. The Fed should lower its rates immediately. DJT. Alan, what do you think?
I think it's great. And for those that are like, well, I'm not seeing the low gas prices, realize maybe what state you're living in and the state taxes that are being implemented on you, like, a place like California and other places. Listen, I'm in New York and I'm seeing a decrease in gas prices.
Same.
By some places, $1 less. Okay. We were up $3.29 a gallon, $3.39 a gallon. For regular gasoline, now we're seeing down $2.29, some places $2.39, but it's getting lower than it was. And I don't have any complaints about my egg prices either. It's just
eggs are down. Gas out here was $5.25 to $5.45 before President Trump took office. Right now, I went to the gas station 2 days ago, $4.55 a gallon. So, nearly 75% lower. They started putting digital price indicators in at all the grocery stores out here in Southern California, probably to do with some green new bullshit and not have the paper ones they need to replace all the time. But I do see what the actual price is, and that slashed in a new lower red price on a lot of the things I buy every week, like eggs, like milk, like those things that are in question right now. And, you had mentioned California just now, Alan. Well, it was leaked this week that during a mega donor dinner, Kamala Harris basically said without saying that she's going to be announcing her nomination to run for the governor of California following Gavin Newsom leaving in 2026. CNN did a compare and contrast on how Americans feel now at the end of the first 100 days and matching President Trump and Kamala Harris back up again. And we're not surprised, but maybe you will be when they have to go and cope and see and read over these numbers.
Who would be doing a better job as president? Guess who comes out on top? Within the margin of error, but comes out on top. This looks a lot like the election result, right? Trump 45%, 2 points ahead of Harris at 43%. 12% say they'd be doing about the same. But this is the key nugget here. It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job right now. And Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris. This looks a heck of a lot like the election result. We have just seen this in poll after poll after poll.
So nationally, the needle really hasn't moved, and there's no Trump voter regret or any of those things that the media continues to portray. Those poll numbers aren't dipping because when you still match up the top candidates in a head-to-head fashion, you get the same election results that you got back in November of last year. Don't you agree, Alan?
Absolutely, I agree, and I think California is just going to be Kamala's consolation prize. I don't think there's any Republican out there that's going to beat any Democrat in California. I heard a rumor. Oh, Rick Grinnell. Someone told me yes at my daughter's track meet. Oh, I heard Rick Grinnell's going to run for governor. I said, Rick Grinnell is not running for governor in California. He's smarter than that.
Yeah, and that guy that they pushed from Fox News to run as a Republican candidate. All the other. Listen, we're trending right in California. We have to keep doing the correct things up on Capitol Hill and let that resonate in all these districts across California. We are 10-ish years away from seeing someone who's going to be of a caliber. It's not going to be Caitlyn Jenner. It's not going to be Arnold, anybody that could come in here and move the needle enough for a Republican to win the governorship, I think, for the next 2 cycles. But we have to continue trending in this election, and we have to keep relying on those red districts in California, which continue to grow to maintain our majority in the House of Representatives.
Yes, that is the key. If we don't keep the majority in the House of Representatives, we are screwed.
Yeah,
so bad,
cataclysmically fucked.
Yep.
To say the very least. Guys, wherever you're listening to the show today, hope you're enjoying the second of 2 Big Friday editions of Steak for Breakfast. Do us a favor, find us on any podcasting platform. We prefer Apple and Spotify. Subscribe to the show for free. Make sure it's downloading to your electronic device. Rate it 5 stars. Write a review. And then check us out on social media. We're on every single one of them as well, but are most active on X. So rounding third and heading home, we've touched on Kamala Harris, figuratively, of course, over the course of the show a few times. There was that speaking event in question where she alluded to the fact that she's going to be running for governor in California. It was 16 minutes overall. There was a lot of giggling, laughing, cackling, and thank yous. But I do have some meat and potatoes of it when she did get down to brass tacks and was able to actually read off the teleprompter. And unfortunately, I'm going to subject you all to listen to about a minute of it. Let's check it out.
But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite over these past few months. Now, I know tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration, and I'll leave it to others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far. But I will say this. Instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing
this is brutal.
The wholesale abandonment of those ideals.
Oh my God, the steels are clapping.
Shut up, bitch!
I don't know what to say. Oh, school buses are yellow. Galaxies are big. Rockets go into outer space. Time is just...
Russia is a big country.
Yeah. And the Ukraine is a smaller one, and they are located next to each other. So when happens, you know, wild.
Good luck, California.
Yeah, I know. We are absolutely going to feel it. I couldn't imagine things being worse than they are now until she announced more than likely that she's going to be running for the governorship here. Trying to think what else I got left. Negative news coverage. Last week, President Trump, 92% overall since he's been elected back to office. They did some of the cabinet level positions this week. Alan, you won't be surprised that RFA Jr. 89% negative coverage. Elon Musk, even worse than President Trump, 96% negative coverage. And the crown jewel of the ones that the left hate the most, Mr. Untouchable, Pete Hegseth, 100% negative coverage. Recruiting numbers through the roof, historic numbers we've never seen before in America or since the modernization of the 6 branches of the military. And Pete Hegseth is at 100% cover to cover bad news. What do you think?
That should tell you everything there is to know about mainstream media and the ones that control them, the liberals, that they want him gone so bad that they're willing to just give up completely 100% their integrity to tarnish the guy. And it's not working.
It certainly isn't. Last clip I've got, and in our last audio clip of the week, I'm sorry, I like to circle back to Stephen Miller. He just absolutely posterizes the media every chance he gets. I'm watching today on the news. Now they're having 911 calls from Maryland man's former wife when she called about some domestic dispute being released to the media. It just gets better for the Democrats every day. Here's him at the White House presser yesterday, absolutely dunking on the press and the man that the radical left has tried to turn Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia into. Let's hear it.
With respect to the case that you mentioned, there's now even been more evidence that has been made public of this person's violent, repeated threats and assaults against his spouse. Someone who had repeated, documented human trafficking and human smuggling offenses. Somebody that has extensively documented membership in MS-13, a terrorist organization, and of course he had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. This is a person that was a clear and present danger to the safety of the American people. And it is a sad reflection on the state of our media and many of the outlets represented in this room that you obsessively try to shill for this MS-13 terrorist. Well, no coverage occurred in your papers about any of the Americans that were raped and tortured and murdered by the illegals that Biden was importing into our country.
It's big time. And listen, that'll be a needle mover and a winner for anyone that literally invests in that. I think it's a winning topic for Republicans. It's untouchable when it comes to Democrats. They've put themselves in such a bad position, sticking up for some of the absolute worst of the worst. But the films and the commercials that are going to be made from this specific instance and what Democrats have done, it's going to be Democrats drinking margaritas with him at a table in El Salvador, and then the 911 call of him beating his wife. It's going to show, something else that's a little bit heartfelt and pulls at the heartstrings, and then it's going to show Democrats protesting in front of the Capitol for him to be returned and unleashed on the streets of the United States. It's just a non-winner for them. This is part of the momentum that I think Republicans have to run with. Alan, you got anything in closing today for our listenership?
No, I think it's great. It's Freedom Friday, and make sure you're following everywhere that you should be following. Don't forget, I don't know if we mentioned it in the show, got a YouTube channel now, Steak for Breakfast Pod on YouTube. Go follow it. Go follow on YouTube.
Absolutely fantastic. We're getting ready to jump in with Brad Knott, North Carolina Congressman for the first time, to wrap up our 2 Friday editions of the show. But before we do, we're also going to have one last check-in with one of our partners.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Battleborn Coffee Roasters. They're law enforcement, family-owned, and they produce some of the best available specialty-grade coffee. That means all those beans have gone through an extensive process to remove all defects. Battleborn researches all their sources, farms, and milling stations to make sure you're not getting any pesticides or chemical fertilizers. Sit back and have a cup of their Borderline Mexico Chiapas blend while you're out sitting on an X or sitting in the office. High-quality coffee from high-quality people. Use promo code STEAK for 20% off your first order. Make sure you go check them out at battleborn.coffee.
All right, joining us next on the show today, this Big Friday edition of the Steak for Breakfast podcast. He's the congressman who represents North Carolina's 13th congressional district. Welcome in for the first time, Representative Brad Knott. Thanks for joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Glad to have you in for the first time, Congressman. We got a bunch to talk about. Let's start with the first 100 days of President Trump's second term in office. A lot of things to talk about regarding that. A lot of major accomplishments, some hurdles set up by the Democrats and the radical activist judges. But sticking in the thread of things that worked almost immediately has to be about border security and immigration. Just from your perspective, Congressman, maybe your office's perspective, even the districts, how are you guys seeing the improvement in border security over the course of the first 100 days? And what does it mean with all the stuff coming down the road congressionally moving forward?
That's right. Great question and a very appropriate lead off. because it honestly is the reason why I decided to run for Congress. I was a former federal prosecutor who focused exclusively on organized crime. And organized crime, it took me to be in my cases, of course, all over the country. You see how illegal immigration hits everywhere and every sector of our country. And I think the voters really started to feel that in earnest over the last 4 years when millions of people were coming in every year. These are illegal immigrants. The Republicans are very pro-legal immigration. Who are you? Why are you here? If you contribute to the country in a lawful way, we want you here. It's the illegal immigrants who undercut wages, who take jobs that should be for Americans, that sell drugs, that traffic humans, that really inflict harm across the board. No matter what sector of our society, it was harmed by illegal immigrants. And the president, very rightfully, when he got into power, those were some of his first actions to deal with the border, to deal with the perverted policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which really incentivized. They didn't just play neutral. They were very aggressive in seeking illegal immigrants coming into the country. They facilitated the entry. They facilitated the duration of the stay. They gave them tax dollars. They gave them access to education. They gave them access to jobs. They gave them your money to cover every basic need that they had when they were here. And when the lowest people in the United States are living better than 98% of the rest of the world, there's a huge incentive for people to come here. And Joe Biden exploited that at the expense of the American taxpayer. And the president has been very aggressive and very successful using his office to reverse that and stop it.
You know, I've heard some of your counterparts from the other side of the aisle over the course of the past week or so, as they were running up on President Trump's first 100-day anniversary here, talking about things about homelessness, about veterans, about education, about healthcare. You know, if you're one of the people out there listening who think that 20 million people came in under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or that there's 20 million people in total here in the United States that don't have legal status and are kind of milking off the systems that American taxpayers have to take, priority in paying and putting ahead of our students, of our sick, of our elderly, of our veterans. It would seem like it would be a problem that the Democrats would want to jump on if they want to complain about homeless veterans sleeping on the streets, the current state of the education system, Republicans looking to trim the fat, waste, fraud, and abuse from things like Medicaid, if they didn't have, so many other millions of people in this country who are also using all of those systems in a lot of instances for free.
That's right. That's right. Spare me the wailing and the gnashing over fill in the blank, education funding, Medicare funding, Medicaid funding, whatever it may be. These same people who are playing political games right now went to bat for the right to give your money to illegal immigrants. That money could have been spent bettering American schools, which are suffering. It could have been better spent going to rural hospitals, which are going bankrupt because of illegal immigrants coming, using, and then not paying. It could have gone to the veterans who, instead of sleeping under bridges, should be housed at the taxpayer's expense rather than the illegal immigrant. I mean, just one example, the New York case, right? President Trump clawed back $80 million of one installment that was going to New York to house illegal immigrants in hotels. What are we doing? It's outrageous. Every dollar that goes to an illegal immigrant should be either saved or spent on American citizens. And the Democrats wailing around right now in protest, it holds absolutely no water because they spent the last 4 years subjugating the American people to their priorities, which was to bring in as many illegal immigrants as possible. And thankfully, at least for now, that's stopped.
No, it certainly is. And then looking at some of the other things that kind of encompass this narrative, we have to talk about the radical activist judges who have been trying to temporary restraining order, injunct, or just stymie the movement of the Trump administration, which has been trying to move at breakneck speed, especially in things regarding immigration. When you see some of the things, how the stroke of a pen, I mean, for Democrats, it seems that they figured out the mathematical equation to losing elections. You don't have to have the Speaker of the House. You don't have to have a majority in the lower chamber. You don't have to have power in the Senate, or even the man that sits in the office of the president, because you could just go find a judge who, could have in some instances bought their way up to the bench and then just have them with the stroke of a pen stop an entire administration as progress moving forward. I know Congress is looking at a bunch of different angles of this. Kind of want to get your take on it.
It's a great question, and let me just say first that in very recent history, there was an arrest of a judge in Wisconsin, I believe, who actively assisted an illegal immigrant who was being tried in her courtroom with victims of that illegal immigrant's crimes present in her courtroom. She misdirected law enforcement, she lied to them, and then she actively assisted the illegal immigrant in his attempted escape from the immigration authorities. She sort of embodies the mantra of the radical left, especially those who are on the radical left in the judiciary, on the judicial side. This is state and federal. We see this mirrored in sanctuary policies across the country, whether it's San Francisco, Los Angeles, Illinois, New York City, various cities in Philadelphia. The list goes on and on. But this idea that there is no such thing as an illegal immigrant, and an illegal immigrant serves the political wishes of the Democratic Party, whether it's a legislator or a judge, the party itself is all in on the political objectives brought to them by illegal immigration. And it's a tremendous problem. They don't have the Senate. They do not have the House of Representatives. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a political operation on the bench. It's quite telling that when Texas, for example, was being overrun by millions of illegal immigrants, federal judges slapped down their efforts to secure their own border, to protect their own taxpayers, to protect the citizens of this country. Now, when President Trump is seeking to remove people who are here illegally, and predominantly, let's be honest, every one of the individuals who the president is targeting should never be here, number one, but are dangerous people, number two. They are dangerous people. And these judges are working in lockstep with the Democratic Party to thwart the legal exercises from the administration. And it is a huge problem.
No, it certainly is, and hopefully Congress has the stomach to tackle this head on. We don't really kind of promote or push impeachments here. We understand that although the House could probably do it, we'd run into an Alejandro Mayorkas type situation where it happens in the House, never happened in the Senate. Even though we'd get a trial, we just won't get the votes, as you need a certain threshold, which would include Democrats to do so. Even though moving forward, it would benefit future administrations if Democrats are able to get back into the Oval Office as well. They just don't understand what's in front of them at this point. And let's just be honest, Congressman, it's anything to stop President Trump. Outside of immigration, I do want to talk to you about some of the other big steps that this administration has done to, make America great again. That necessarily being said is post-Liberation Day, for the Band-Aid being ripped on the trade deficit globally, for how a lot of our allies count on us for friendship, for security, for defense, and other things. The trade imbalance that's happened over the past 20, 30 years here in the United States has gotten, like our annual budget deficit, like our national debt in its totality, unsustainable. It takes a certain kind of administration and president to tackle this head on, for as much as Wall Street and many others don't want to see it happen. But President Trump is doing so. The market's leveled out. The economy is looking better. Inflation is down. And you have allies now coming to the table with deals that are going to be beneficial for both parties and not leave the U.S. taxpayer on the hook to pay off these massive budget deficits in regards to trade. How do you think this move has been for President Trump? And moving forward, do you see this really starting to turn? I mean, we've already got over $7 trillion in investments coming back into the United States before any of the trade deals are really inked. And it just seems like when we're really trying to bring that national debt down, this is going to be a good first step to doing so. Sure.
Well, several points there. I very proudly boast as being someone who is for free trade. The problem is, the president has identified rightfully that many countries do not play by the rules that allow free trade. We are usually by a 90% margin out tariffed with our allies, with the people that we trade with, et cetera. That means that they tariff our goods far more than we tariff their goods. As an example, I just got back from an overseas trip. I did not see any American cars in the city that I was in. That's very problematic. I didn't see any American motorcycles or mopeds. They were everywhere. Didn't see any American brands over there. And that's strictly because of these barriers that President Trump has identified that preclude American products from flooding the international markets in competition. That's all he wants, is the right to compete. And he is right on this issue insofar as he wants free trade. He wants fair trade. And if they won't play by the rules to allow it, we must act in our own interests. Secondly, The problem that very few people talk about is that China is a hostile actor.
Yep.
Every person that comes to my office, whether it is someone from the pharmaceutical business, whether it is someone in the technology business, IT, whether it's someone in the artificial intelligence, even someone, I met with someone, it was interesting, who manufactures piping materials. Every person says that China is actively either stealing their intellectual property, stealing their patents, stealing their designs, or they already have it. And once they have those designs, they manufacture it so they can flood the market at their expense, the state's expense, to undercut American companies and American interests. These are not benign efforts from China. And the president has identified this, and I believe he is very acutely working to rectify the hostile party and the hostile actions that are China and the Chinese Communist Party. And it takes real leadership. There's obviously been a pullback economically on some level. I have gotten assurances from anyone who hears this that the president does not want to have a tariff war, but he does want to have free and fair trade for the United States.
Yes.
And he's working to ensure that American businesses, American farmers, American intellectual property can be protected and sold abroad on a fair, level playing field. And that's what he's hoping to do. And if that happens, and if we can get our reconciliation package passed in the next few months, I think you will see an economic cycle that will benefit everybody. And that's what we're working towards.
Big things we're tracking here on Steak for Breakfast. We caught up on a bunch of them with the congressman from North Carolina today. Listen, it was great having you on the show for the first time. We'd love to have you come back anytime. You just let us know whether it's a piece of legislation you're pushing, updates on reconciliation, etc. You just reach out to us and we'll 100% be there to and happy to host. We've got everything live linked in our show description today, including a link to your link tree, which is going to take you to a lot of great information and social media stuff that you can see the congressman in work, like much as he was here today on the show. Where can we find you on social media? We'll live link that as well.
You know, if you just search for Brad Knott or Representative Brad Knott, we've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Facebook. You know, all the platforms are covered. We'd love to engage with you. We've got a campaign X account. We've got an official X account. You can find us there. That's probably the most active that we're on. And send us a message, send us a comment. We would love to meet you, hear from you, engage with you. And then just so anyone can hear this, we will be doing another telephone town hall soon. So be on the lookout for that. Call into it. Send us your questions. We're ready to engage, and we look forward to hearing from you.
He sure did today. Joining us is the congressman from North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. He's also a member of the Republican Study Committee as well. Representative Brad Knott, thanks for joining us on the show, sir. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, that's how you recap the first 100 days and take this podcast listenership directly into the weekend. If you enjoyed this episode of the Steak for Breakfast podcast and want to hear the now over 580 other editions of the show, you best be subscribed to us across every downloadable podcast platform. We're on all of them. We want you subscribed for free on Apple and Spotify. Check us out on social media as well. Twitter, Getter, Truth Social, Instagram, and TikTok is where we have accounts. Find them, follow them, hit the notification bell. You'll never miss out on all the great stuff we've got going on down here. At Steak for Breakfast, we want to thank all of our guests for coming in and sharing with us today. Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany, New York Congressman Nick Langworthy, Texas Representative Pat Fallon, and representing the great state of North Carolina, Brad Knott. You guys all helped make Steak great again. Guys, we're heading into the weekend, but don't you worry. We'll be back on Tuesday with 2 brand new editions of the show, already scheduled to appear. Pretty good guest lineup shaping up for your ears. Texas Congressman Troy Nehls, South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman, and Virginia Congressman Ben Klein will all be here. So on behalf of the pod team, I'm Roan. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, America First, and take care.
There's nowhere I'd rather be than right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Titletown, USA. If you're here today and think that you're too young to do something great, let me tell you that you're not too young. You can have great success at a very young age. I've learned that perseverance is everything, so whatever happens, no matter where you are in life, stay optimistic and just keep pushing forward. Just don't stop. Never, ever give up. This is Alabama. And in Alabama, you fight, and you win. That's what you know how to do. Congratulations to you all. Congratulations to this great class of champions. God bless you and God